My name is Emily Carter, and for most of my life, I believed that family was supposed to be the one place where you never had to prove your worth. I was wrong. Because sometimes, the people sitting across the dinner table from you can be the same people secretly hoping to see you fail. And I learned that lesson on Thanksgiving night, a night that started with turkey, pumpkin pie, laughter, and family photographs, and ended with me walking out of my parents' house with tears in my eyes and a decision in my heart that would change every one of their lives. Before I tell you what happened, if you enjoy emotional family stories, betrayal stories, and stories where people finally get the justice they deserve, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with me until the end. Because what my family didn't know that night was that I had been keeping a secret of my own. And when they discovered it, they wished they had never humiliated me. The Thanksgiving dinner was supposed to begin at 6. I arrived at my parents' house at exactly 5:45. The driveway was already packed with cars. My older sister Sarah's SUV was parked closest to the front door. My younger brother Daniel's truck was beside it, and my parents' neighbors had even come over because, according to my mother, Thanksgiving was always better with more people. I carried 2 homemade pumpkin pies inside. The moment I opened the door, the smell of roasted turkey filled the hallway. My mother, Linda, appeared from the kitchen. "Emily," she looked at the pies. Then she looked at me. "You actually made those yourself?" I smiled. "Yes, Mom," she gave a small laugh. "Well, that's unexpected." I wasn't sure what she meant. I followed her into the kitchen. Sarah was standing near the counter, dressed in an expensive cream-colored sweater and gold jewelry. She looked at my simple blue dress, then at the pies. "Emily, you didn't have to bring dessert." "I wanted to help," Sarah smiled. "You always were the helpful one." Something about the way she said it bothered me, but I ignored it. That was something I had become very good at, ignoring things. For years, I had been the daughter who stayed quiet, the daughter who helped, the daughter who didn't complain. Sarah had always been different. She was confident, successful, popular, and according to my mother, practically perfect. When Sarah graduated from college, my parents threw a huge celebration. When she bought her first house, they helped with the down payment. When she got married, my father gave her a check that covered most of the wedding. And when she started her own business, my parents called her the pride of the family. I never complained. I was happy for her. At least I thought I was. I worked as a financial analyst at a small investment firm in Chicago. I wasn't rich. I wasn't famous. But I had built a stable life for myself. I owned a small apartment. I paid my own bills. And I had spent years saving money. I didn't need my parents' approval, or so I told myself. At 6:30, everyone sat down for dinner. My father raised his glass. To family. Everyone smiled. I smiled too. Then my father looked at Sarah. And to Sarah, whose company just signed another major contract. Everyone clapped. Sarah stood. "Oh, Dad, you deserve it," my father said proudly. My mother looked around the table. Everyone should learn something from Sarah. The room went quiet. I lowered my eyes. My father continued. "She's worked hard. She took risks. She built something." Sarah looked uncomfortable, but I could tell she enjoyed the attention. Then my mother looked directly at me. "Emily could learn from her." I forced a smile. "Congratulations, Sarah." Sarah raised her glass. "Thanks." Dinner continued. For a few minutes, everything seemed normal. Then my uncle asked me, "So Emily, how's your little job?" Little job, those 2 words stayed with me. I answered politely. "It's going well." My mother laughed. "She still works for that investment company." My father shook his head. "After all these years?" I nodded. "Yes." Sarah interrupted. "Maybe Emily just likes playing it safe." Everyone laughed. I didn't. Then my father said something that changed the entire atmosphere. "Actually, Emily has always been afraid of taking chances." My mother nodded. "That's true." I stared at my plate. I could feel my face getting hot. Then Sarah leaned back in her chair. "At least she's dependable." Another laugh. This time, even my cousin laughed. I looked around the table. These were my people, my family, the people I had spent years helping, and they were laughing at me. I swallowed my embarrassment. Then my father stood and walked toward the living room. "Everyone, I want to show you something." A few minutes later, we were gathered around the television. My father connected his phone. A presentation appeared on the screen. It was Sarah's business, her company logo, her financial projections, her new expansion plan. Everyone applauded. Then my father said, "We're investing in Sarah's new project." I looked at him. "You're investing?" My mother smiled. "Yes." "How much?" My father hesitated. $300,000. My heart sank. 300,000. I wasn't jealous. At least that's what I told myself. But then my father looked at me and said, "Maybe one day you'll do something worth investing in too." The room became silent. I looked at my mother. She didn't defend me. I looked at Sarah. She was staring at her wine glass. Then my father laughed. "I'm only joking." But it wasn't funny, not to me. I stood up. "I think I need some air," my mother called after me. "Emily, don't be dramatic." I walked outside. The cold November air hit my face. I stood on the porch and stared at the dark street. Tears filled my eyes. Not because of the money, not because of Sarah. Because for the first time, I finally understood something. My family didn't see me as an equal. They saw me as the daughter who had never become anything. And they had no idea that the woman they were laughing at had quietly built something far more valuable than they could imagine. I wiped my tears. I took my phone from my pocket. There was one message waiting for me, from my attorney. "Emily, the acquisition documents are ready. Once you sign tomorrow morning, Carter Financial Holdings will officially own the majority stake in your father's company." I stared at the message. Then I smiled, because my family thought I was a failure. They didn't know that 6 months earlier, my father had nearly lost his company, and the anonymous investor who had secretly saved it was me. I hadn't told them. I wanted them to believe I was still the same Emily. The quiet daughter, the safe daughter, the daughter who couldn't take risks. But after what happened that Thanksgiving night, I decided they had earned the truth. And the truth was going to hurt. Very badly. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. I barely slept. My family's words kept replaying in my head. "Little job, afraid of taking chances. Maybe one day you'll do something worth investing in." I sat at the edge of my bed and looked at the documents on my laptop. Carter Financial Holdings, my father's company. For 32 years, my father had built that business. But during the previous year, everything had started falling apart. Bad investments, lost clients, unpaid debts, and one disastrous partnership. My father had never told the family how serious things had become. But I knew, because I had been watching. My job in finance had given me access to information most people never saw. I knew the market. I understood the company's debt structure. And 6 months earlier, I discovered that my father's company was weeks away from bankruptcy. I could have ignored it. Maybe I should have. But despite everything, he was still my father. So I created a private investment company. I used my savings. I brought in 2 trusted partners, and we purchased enough of my father's company's debt to prevent the bank from forcing a liquidation. My father believed a mysterious investment group had rescued him. He had no idea that group was controlled by me. I had done it because I wanted to save his company, not because I wanted control. But after Thanksgiving, that changed. Monday morning, I walked into my attorney's office. "Are you sure?" he asked. I looked at the papers. "Yes. Once you sign this, you'll have controlling interest." "I know. Your father will find out." "I know." He nodded. I signed. And with one signature, I became the controlling owner of the company my father had spent his entire life building. But I didn't stop there. I had another surprise. Sarah's company. Remember the $300,000 my parents had proudly announced they were investing? That money wasn't actually theirs. My father had borrowed against his company, and the loan was secured against several assets, including his house. I had discovered the paperwork. Sarah's business was built on borrowed confidence. If her expansion failed, my family could lose everything. I didn't want that. I wasn't interested in destroying them. I wanted them to understand something. Humiliation has consequences. 3 days later, my mother called. Emily? Yes. Are you still upset about Thanksgiving? I stayed quiet. She continued. Your father was only joking. I know. Then why are you acting distant? I looked out the window. Maybe I'm just tired of being treated like the family disappointment. My mother sighed. Nobody thinks that. I almost laughed. Mom, everyone said it. Sarah was celebrating, your father had been drinking. That doesn't excuse it. Silence. Then my mother said, you're always so sensitive. That sentence broke something inside me. I realized there would never be an apology, because people who believe they are better than you rarely apologize for hurting you. Instead, they tell you that you're too sensitive. So I said, okay, Mom. What does that mean? It means I'm done explaining myself. I hung up. That afternoon, I received another message from my attorney. Your father has requested a meeting with the new investment group. I smiled. Schedule it. 2 days later, the meeting was set. My father arrived at the conference room with Sarah beside him. Neither of them recognized me at first. I was sitting at the head of the table. My father looked confused. Where's the investment group? I stood, you're looking at it. His face changed. Emily? Sarah froze. I nodded. Hello, Dad. He stared at me, then he laughed. This is a joke. No, he looked at my attorney. What's going on? My attorney calmly explained everything. My father sat down. Sarah whispered, how? I looked at her. Hard work. The same words my father had used to praise her. My father's face became pale. You bought the debt? Yes. You saved the company? Yes. And you never told me? No. Why? I looked directly into his eyes. Because I wanted to know whether you respected me when you thought I had nothing. He couldn't answer. Sarah looked embarrassed, but then my father stood up. You manipulated us. I shook my head. No, I protected you. You could have told us. I tried to help you without expecting anything. He slammed his hand on the table. You humiliated me. I looked at him quietly. Now you know how it feels. The room became silent. For the first time in my life, my father had nothing to say. The news didn't stay inside that conference room. By the end of the week, everyone knew. My mother called me 17 times. I didn't answer. Sarah sent messages. My uncle called. Even my cousin Jessica, who had laughed at Thanksgiving, sent me a message. Emily, I had no idea. I stared at the screen. Neither did I. I had no idea how quickly people changed when they realized you weren't powerless. My father eventually demanded that I meet him. I agreed. We met at a quiet restaurant. He looked older than he had at Thanksgiving. He didn't order anything. He simply stared at me. I owe you an apology. I waited. I treated you unfairly. I nodded. Yes. I was proud of Sarah. You were. But I shouldn't have compared you. No, he looked down. Why didn't you tell us what you had accomplished? I thought about it. Because every time I tried to talk about my work, you changed the subject. He looked surprised. I don't remember that. I do. He was silent. Then he said, I thought you weren't ambitious. I was ambitious. I smiled sadly. I just wasn't loud about it. He looked at me. Then came the question I had been expecting. Are you going to take the company from me? No, he looked surprised. I don't want your company. Then why control it? Because I wanted to make sure you couldn't lose it. He swallowed. I don't understand. I don't need to be the CEO. I don't need your position. I don't even need your money. Then what do you want? I looked directly at him. Respect. His eyes became wet. For a moment, I saw the father I remembered from childhood. The father who taught me to ride a bicycle. The father who stayed awake when I had the flu. The father who used to tell me I could become anything. Then he whispered, I'm sorry. And this time I believed him, but Sarah wasn't ready to apologize. She called me that evening. You embarrassed us. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Sarah, you laughed at me. I didn't know you were secretly controlling Dad's company. That doesn't change what you did. You could have told us. Would you have treated me differently if you knew? She didn't answer, because we both knew the answer. Then she said, I thought we were sisters. We are. Then why did you do this? I didn't do this to you. Yes, you did. No, Sarah. I took a deep breath. You did this to yourself when you decided my worth depended on my job." She hung up. A week later, Sarah's expansion project started collapsing. The business she had planned to build wasn't financially viable. My parents were terrified. They were about to lose the $300,000 and possibly their home. My attorney asked me, "Do you want us to intervene?" I thought about it. "Yes, to stop the project. No, to save it." I nodded. "But there's a condition." "What condition?" "Sarah has to restructure the company herself." I wanted her to learn. Not suffer, there was a difference. Sarah eventually agreed. For the first time, she had to sit down and look at the numbers herself. No father, no mother, no family money, no special treatment, just reality. And slowly she began fixing the business. Months passed. The company recovered. My parents kept their home. Sarah's business survived, but something else changed. My family stopped comparing us, because now they understood something. Success didn't always look like expensive clothes. Sometimes it looked like the quiet daughter sitting at the end of the table. The daughter nobody noticed. The daughter they thought had failed. The daughter who had quietly saved everyone. But the story wasn't over. Because 6 months later, my father called me with a request that I never expected. He wanted me to come home. He said there was something he needed to show me. And when I arrived, everyone was waiting. My mother, Sarah, Daniel, my uncle, even the cousin who had laughed at Thanksgiving. They were all sitting around the same table. The same table where my family had humiliated me, but this time there was no laughter. There was an envelope in the center. My father pushed it toward me. "Open it." I looked at him. "What's this?" He smiled. "Something we should have given you years ago." I opened the envelope, and what I saw inside made me speechless. Inside the envelope was an old photograph. It was me at 17. I was standing beside my father in front of his first office. On the back he had written, "Emily, never let anyone convince you that you're not capable." I looked up. My father was crying. "I forgot those words," he said. I couldn't speak. My mother reached across the table. "We all did." Sarah looked at me. "I owe you the biggest apology." I looked at her. She continued. "At Thanksgiving, I laughed because I wanted everyone to think I was the successful sister." She wiped her eyes, but the truth is, she paused. "I was jealous of you." I was shocked. "Jealous?" She nodded. "You were always independent." I stared at her. "You didn't need Dad's approval." She smiled sadly. "I did." That was the first time Sarah had ever admitted it. She had spent years trying to impress our parents. I had spent years trying to escape their expectations. We had both been fighting different battles. My mother spoke next. "We made a terrible mistake." I looked at her. "We treated achievement like it had only one definition." She took my hand. "And we forgot that being kind, responsible, and loyal are achievements too." I didn't know what to say. For years, I had imagined this moment. I imagined them apologizing. I imagined telling them exactly how much they hurt me. I imagined walking away. But now that the moment had arrived, I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. I looked around the table. "I forgive you." My father closed his eyes, but I continued. "Forgiveness doesn't mean we go back to how things were." He nodded. "I understand. I need boundaries." "Yes. I don't want anyone making jokes about my career." "Never again," my mother said, "and I don't want money used to decide who matters more." My father nodded. "Agreed." Sarah reached for my hand. "And no more competition." I smiled. "No more competition." That night we ate dinner together. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to earn my place at the table. But there was one more thing I needed to do. The next Thanksgiving, I invited everyone to my house. My family arrived expecting another traditional dinner. Instead, I had something different planned. I had created a scholarship fund. The fund would help young women from families who couldn't afford college. My father looked at the paperwork. "How much?" "Enough to help 20 students every year." He smiled. "That's incredible." I looked at him. "I want the family to contribute." He nodded. "Of course." Sarah smiled. "I'll contribute too," my mother agreed. And that was when I realized something. My revenge hadn't been destroying my family. It had been becoming the person they once told me I couldn't become. I didn't ruin Sarah's business. I didn't take my father's company. I didn't expose family secrets. I didn't embarrass them publicly. Instead, I made them face the truth. And sometimes the strongest revenge isn't making someone suffer. It's becoming so strong that their opinion no longer controls you. Years later, people still talk about that Thanksgiving, but not because of the humiliation. They remember it because it was the night everything changed. My father eventually retired. Sarah's company became successful without family money. My mother started volunteering with the Scholarship Foundation, and I became the CEO of Carter Financial Holdings, not because my father gave me the position, not because I demanded it, because the board voted for me. The same people who once believed I wasn't ambitious now trusted me to lead the company. And every Thanksgiving we still gather around the same table, but there is one empty chair. It belongs to the person I used to be, the quiet girl who believed she wasn't enough, the girl who thought she had to prove herself, the girl who cried on her parents' porch while her family laughed inside. I sometimes wish I could go back and hug her. I would tell her, "You're not a failure. You're not less important. And you don't have to become someone else to deserve respect." Because the truth is family can hurt you, sometimes more deeply than strangers ever could. But your value doesn't disappear because someone refuses to see it. And sometimes the greatest revenge is not revenge at all. It's healing, it's growing, it's succeeding without becoming cruel, and it's sitting at the same table years later knowing that you finally became proud of yourself. Thanksgiving was the night my family tried to make me feel small, but it became the night I discovered just how strong I really was, and that was the revenge they never expected. A year after that Thanksgiving, I stood in front of a room filled with young women. They were scholarship recipients. Some had lost parents. Some came from families struggling financially. Some had been told they weren't smart enough. Others had been told their dreams were unrealistic. I looked at them and saw a little bit of myself in every face. I told them the story of my family. Not every detail, but enough. I told them that sometimes people will measure you by your salary, sometimes by your clothes, sometimes by your house, sometimes by the person you're married to, and sometimes even your own family will compare you to someone else. But none of those things determine your worth. One young woman raised her hand. "How did you forgive them?" I smiled. "It took time." "Did they deserve forgiveness?" I thought about it. Maybe, maybe not. She looked confused. I continued. "I didn't forgive them because they deserved it. I forgave them because I didn't want their actions to control the rest of my life." The room became silent. I looked at the young women. Forgiveness isn't always about giving someone another chance. Sometimes it's about giving yourself permission to move forward. After the speech, my father came up to me. He hugged me. "I'm proud of you." I smiled. "Thank you." He looked around the room. "You know, when you were 17, I thought I knew what success looked like." I laughed. "And now," he smiled, "now I know I was wrong." We walked outside together. The sun was setting. My father stopped near the parking lot. "Emily?" "Yes. Do you ever regret what happened?" I thought about Thanksgiving, the laughter, the embarrassment, the tears, the anger, the revenge, the forgiveness. "No," he looked surprised. "Not even a little." I shook my head. Because if that night hadn't happened, I might never have realized how much I was trying to prove myself to people who didn't understand me. He nodded. "Then maybe something good came from it." "Maybe." I looked toward the sunset. Sometimes the worst nights become the beginning of your best years. That Thanksgiving changed my family, but more importantly, it changed me. I stopped waiting for approval. I stopped comparing myself to Sarah. I stopped believing that success had to be loud, and I stopped allowing other people's opinions to determine my value. My family once thought I was the least successful person at that table. Years later, they asked me to lead the table. But the greatest victory wasn't the company. It wasn't the money. It wasn't the scholarship. It wasn't even the apology. the greatest victory was simple. I finally looked at myself and liked the person I saw. So if you're listening to this story and you've ever been made to feel like the disappointment in your family, please remember something. You are not a failure because someone failed to recognize your value. You don't have to compete with your siblings. You don't have to prove yourself at every family gathering. And you don't have to become bitter just because someone hurt you. Keep building, keep learning, keep growing. Let your actions speak louder than the people who doubt you. Because sometimes the person everyone underestimates becomes the person everyone remembers. And sometimes the best revenge isn't making your family regret hurting you. It's building a life so meaningful that you no longer need their approval.
Thank you for staying with me until the end of this story. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may need to hear this message. And remember, your worth was never decided by the people sitting across the Thanksgiving table. It was always inside you. You just had to believe it. See you in the next story.